All right, welcome back. Whatever. Here we are. So check it out. I think I'm not saying you should have to have a license for one. I'm just saying that you could certainly do more damage with a computer than with an automobile. Having an automobile, you have to register this thing, you have to prove that you know how to use it competently. You don't have to prove any knowledge of how to fix a spare tire or change your oil or even really know how it works outside of the main controls. But I think you can do a lot more damage with a computer uh, than you can with an automobile. I think it's weird that we just let people have these things.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean when Steve Jobs came along and that was kind of his thing is he wanted to put the power in the hands of the artists. And the
Mm.
artists are people who are uh tools are just leverage, right? And so he wanted the artist to have leverage, which meant that this technical thing that, when he came along it was like MS DOS, right? The level you had to like learn the system deeply to be able to do really simple basic tasks. And so he created an user interface, a user experience that was intuitive up until Apple came along. And Apple wasn't like this in the very beginning. Actually, Steve Jobs was fired from Apple. He went and started Pixar, and then he came back. And he came back because Apple was going through trouble. Actually, there's a couple really cool lessons in here. He came back, and they were selling like 8 or 9 different types of computers. He goes, slash all of them. We're getting down to one.
Hmm.
And so focusing in on a single product was one of the lessons that I learned from studying some of his work. But the other thing is he really wanted, uh, he didn't think that you should have a user manual for your computer, because up until that point, you get a computer and it comes with a fucking book, right?
You need
Which
it.
which I read that book, but I was a nerdy teenager when all this new technology was coming out. And he comes along and goes, no, it needs to be so intuitive. You don't need an instruction manual. You just open it up and you pretty much know what to do.
Mm.
And everything in computing at that point, uh, if you wanted to be successful, you had to become intuitive. The iPhone, uh, Android as well. All these things have gotten to where like you don't need to know anything. You pretty much put it in your hand and start playing around, and you get an idea of how the thing works. Um, so, and at the same time, man, there's stuff running around on my computer that the problem with that is if you never learn how it works, you're susceptible to manipulation. And so
Mm.
it's I keep telling Max my goal is to be off of Apple and Google, both the two giants in the space that have the most capability of manipulating you. I'm going to move over to Linux based systems and get off of the convenient teat of these two amazing technologies. These companies have done this, but I think it's worth a little inconvenience so that I know exactly what's happening on my machine. And overall, in the end, I will have more leverage than people using the convenient, what I call Apple and Google the McDonald's of technology.
Hmm. It reminds me
And
of this
we're obese.
classic. It reminds me of this classic idea of comparative advantage. So you have a refrigerator, but if the refrigerator breaks, you can't fix the refrigerator. You got to call somebody else to fix the refrigerator. If the computer breaks, you got to call someone else to fix the computer because you really don't know how that stuff works because it's a black box algorithm. So it is way more efficient for you to just focus on whatever it is you do best and then depend on or rely upon other people to sort out those things for you that are black box algorithms. And the more you rely on yourself for all those different aspects, the more time intensive it is. And I think there are certain things where it's valuable and certain things where maybe it's not as valuable, but it's a tricky risk reward to decide where to invest your time into. Like if your refrigerator breaks, how how do you evaluate your ability to fix it? Me personally, even though I have a amateur interest in it because it's such a monumental invention, I think I'd be fucked.
Yeah, I think for certain
Depending
things,
on what's wrong. Depending on what's wrong.
yeah, I mean, and it depends on the tool, right? Like the way I see it is, I don't mind hiring someone to fix my fridge, but a computer having basic and phones having the ability to control your mind, I think warrants
Mm,
a little more attention than the refrigerator. The refrigerator is doing one task, and
right.
no one's tapping in and manipulating what's going to pop up on the screen, which is then going to create the perception of your world. But
Mm,
this brings up a tweet that was sent to me last week from a guy named Greg Eisenberg. And he says, I think we're going to see many $25 million a year plus revenue businesses, or yeah, one person businesses over the next 5 years. So he's saying we're going to see many $25 million a year businesses that are run by a single person in the next 5 years. No employees, just AI, no custom code, just Typeform, no fancy website, just Webflow, no paid ads, just community, no venture capital, just bootstrapped, and high cash flow, low stress. Now, he's kind of right because if you saw Meta just made an announcement that they're also going to do for $12 a month, you'll get customer support and you'll get that blue check mark that so that people are less likely to be able to steal your identity online. And so I think that's an example. These companies, Facebook has lost a lot of ad revenue in the last few years for many different reasons. Uh, but I think that it, I think Twitter moving to paid monthly and Facebook moving to paid monthly is demonstrating that the ad revenue is not may not be the future for these companies. So you may not need that in order to run a 8-figure business. It's basically what this guy is saying. He's got more tweets below that, but anyone
mm.
wants to look his stuff up, his name's Greg Eisenberg, and he's got some good ideas, really good ideas.
Having a strong connection with your customers or tribe is good no matter what the environment is, whether it's advertising or not. I think advertising is a valuable amplifier. Certainly, there are ideas about how to be more formulaic with virality so things catch fire. Watched a few interesting things with Mr. Beast about that. Uh, I don't enjoy the content, but he really understands the forces behind what makes something really pop in a
What do
big
you, what do
way.
you
So
what do you think those things are? I mean, since you're you've been curious about it, you're a smart guy. You figured some things out.
no, nothing.
Why are we listening to you? Stop talking. Come on.
You shouldn't. Oh my god! If I had it all figured out, would I be doing this? No way, dude. Sadly, I'm still looking for whatever that thing is that I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Uh, no, I think that he understands what gets people to click and he understands what gets people to stay. I don't think he's the only person who does that, but he's the exact opposite of advertising and bringing people into a funnel from the advertising, but it's there's a lot of tempo to it. I watched a few videos. It does not it doesn't give you a chance for your attention to be pulled away. And it's always something very outlandish. There's often a large uh, money prize for someone in the video. So, hold on to this car for 10 days and you win this $1 million car or whatever, things like that. Um, and so he has his audience really well defined in terms of what grabs their attention and what keeps their attention and what pops him up to trending, basically, which is it's not advertising, but it is still achieving an even better result. Obviously, I mean, I don't know if I could analyze it expertly. I just see that it works.
Yeah, yeah. I I think the virality is understood by some people. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they, um, like one of my clients has a really large Instagram following, and this person, I was telling her about it, and she's like, yeah, I wouldn't want to like count on the luck of blowing up on Instagram for my business. And my response was, well, it wasn't luck at all. This guy was pumping out 4 posts when reels came along, 4 reels a week, every week to a very targeted market, giving very good advice and using very specific techniques in order to get there. And it was a long, like, I know many people with large followings. We did with Barbell Shrugged as well. People go, oh, you blew up overnight. I go, no, we did not. It was twice a week content, high quality, going out. We were intentionally using SEO to title things so that it would be searchable on YouTube and Google, and and it was all on purpose. And it just, if you can log 18 to 24 months of just consistent content in a single direction, people will look at you and go, oh, they blew up. I'm like, they didn't blow up. They did the thing. And it's very difficult for someone to do that because um, this is most creators, right? This is most like, influencers, creators, whatever you want to call it. Most of them that are successful, I think, did the long, consistent thing and just had faith that one day this shit's going to pay off, right? I've worked with a couple clients where that was the case. It was definitely the case for me. But I have also met people who know how to create viral videos. They get hired by a company and they come in and they go, we do it like this, we edit it like this, we name it like this. And they can take a brand that from nothing to 100,000 views or subscribers or whatever it is very, very quickly. So there are, what I'm saying that I'd like for people to hear is it's rarely luck that somebody gets popular. It's usually due to consistent messaging to a specific audience, or they're using, and is probably more of an and they're using specific formulas that we've found that keeps people's attention. This happens with pop music, right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
very specific formula for creating music and movies that we know if we follow this formula that the average person is going to eat it up. It feels familiar. It feels like home. It feels safe. It's comforting. And uh, but there's also a lot of amazing music that doesn't follow that formula, and it's not going to ever get popular because the average person doesn't feel comfortable with that music.
It's
But
also a little too challenging to listen to. Uh, I think of the difference between
unless you're
pop
unless you're
and
eating a
some
bunch of
classical
psychedelics,
music.
yeah,
Classical music has stood the test of time. It's beautiful. It's complex a lot of the time, and nowhere near as many views and listens on YouTube as one of those 4 chord pop songs that just hypnotizes you, right?
Yep.
and you give the people what they want. Same with videos. You don't have to take our word for it. You can just go look at someone whose videos have a lot of views, and you can rank them by which have the most views, and then try to see what kind of commonalities there are with the titles of those videos and what kind of commonalities there are in the themes of those videos. And you'll start to see really quick a pattern
Yeah.
emerge for that specific audience, at least.
Yeah.
Anyway, you
Hmm.
can do a lot of damage with a computer. You could you could hypnotize a ton of people into having really messed up thoughts. And I was thinking about I'm always thinking about weird stuff, as you know. But if is it better to kill one person or to psychologically destroy like 100,000 people? Like, you don't kill them, you don't do anything that is illegal. You just really leave them a sad, soulless husk of anxiousness and depression.
Yeah. There was a. I mean, I think you're talking about the last 3 years, but
Oh, I have some journal entries specifically about that. Like, what? Very true. What's worse, if 1 million people die or if 300 million people are imprisoned?
right, there's a conversation I was listening to the other day. I was listening to Paul Check's episode with Mark Gaffney, and I know Mark very well. Spent a lot of time with him. Brilliant philosopher, and the show he did with Paul was just super enjoyable to listen to. One of the things they got into is that a lot of these people who are part of like the Great Reset, you got Klaus Schwab and some other people. Uh, what Mark was saying is that these people actually think that they're doing something good, right? They want to,
Always.
yeah, they want to save
No one thinks
humanity,
they're the villain. No one thinks they're the villain. To rudely interrupt you, no one ever has thought they were the villain. They're
right?
always the
And
hero in their own story.
so where, so what's happened in the last 3 years is we have a bunch of people that are trying to save humanity, right? But in an attempt to save humanity, they they killed our humanity. They killed or they lost humanity, our humanity in the process. So humanity, as biological beings, we get to keep reproducing and living on. But our humanity is, do we treat people with respect? Do we honor the sovereignty of every individual? And uh, I think that's it was a really good distinction to have made, and that some people, if you're in the amygdala, if you're in the survival state, then you will choose saving humanity over our humanity. You also would have to believe that there's no value in the individual simultaneously,
Mm.
and I think that's what we're primarily seeing in the political leadership these days is there's a lack of demonstration of that.
Well, if you're a leader, what other message could you possibly put forth than you all must sacrifice for the greater good, and I will be in charge? It doesn't matter how big the group is, right?
Yeah, yeah,
uh, yeah, so it's kind of like the trolley problem a little bit. Are you familiar with the
right.
trolley
Hmm.
problem?
Yeah,
Basically,
I
three
have
people are on the
I've
train
spent a lot
tracks.
of time on that one.
Yeah.
I've
I
worked it out for myself. I know what I
I
would
didn't
do.
see nothing. Uh So three people are on the train tracks. Train is about to kill them, but there's a lever that you could pull to divert it to another track where it would kill only one person. So you would be responsible for saving those three people who were going to die without your involvement, but you would be killing this other person who would have lived without your involvement. What do? Do you kill the one to save the three?
No.
You don't.
No.
You let it be.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
If there
probably the family of the guy that you killed would sue you. I would be like, I didn't see nothing.
Well, this is where it gets
Can
interesting
you
is
imagine?
because I don't know the series of events that led up to the fact that there's these three people on the tracks, and uh, in this particular analogy, so it's really a exercise that's in a vacuum, which is great.
Hmm.
Um, and so inside of this vacuum, it comes down to two things for me, which is one is by taking action, I take a life, or by not taking action, I don't save a life.
Hmm.
And so, uh, morally,
Three, three
three
lives you don't
lives.
save.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, morally, the taking an action that would result in killing somebody, it would be immoral. Not taking an action that could save three people, inside, but having to sacrifice someone to get there, I don't think there's I think morally it's better to do it where like I'm not going to do anything,
Hmm.
because I don't have enough information, you know.
What if it's 1,000 people?
Oh, that's a good one.
What if
Mm,
it's 1,000,000 people? What if you have to strangle one 5-year-old to death to save 1,000,000 adults? Do you strangle
no,
10,000,000?
no, no.
That's good. I like it.
Yeah.
Mike knows which side his bread is buttered on. I like it.
Yeah, I think that going the other way is a trap. I think that particular experiment is a way of uh I think we got to get down to like the philosophical nuts and bolts, which I laid out how I approach it. Do you approach it
It's
differently?
I mean, it's the road to Machiavellianism, right? Like
Right.
you ask any parent, would they kill 10 strangers to save their kid? The answer is yes, or they're lying to you, probably.
Right. Do you
So there's a proximity thing there. And if
yeah,
you're
that's more context,
Machiavellian,
right?
yeah, and if you're Machiavellian, well, the proximity to you personally and the uh difference in the number of the two options should have some sort of parity. Suppose you're a leader, do you kill 10 to save 200 million? At some point, in order to really say that you're looking out for the whole group, you have to make some difficult decisions, right?
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting that you brought up Machiavelli because The Prince, which is written by Machiavelli, popped into my fucking consciousness today. I was thinking about it, and I don't think
Mm,
about that. It's not like I'm sitting around thinking about Machiavelli. And
mm.
I had this memory of I read The Prince, and I thought it was great. I was in my late teens, early 20s. I read it when I was like 18 or 19. That's what it was. And I was like, yeah, these people are retarded and need to be taken care of. And we just somebody at the top needs to be very manipulative in order to get things done. And it was that
Yep.
kind of thing that made being in the military okay to me at the time. But I was out in California, uh, and getting my training in the Navy, and I have an uncle that lives up in LA who is works in politics. And so I went and stayed with him and his family for a weekend, and I happened to have The Prince with me. And I gifted it to his 15-year-old son. And I later found out they didn't know I gave the kid the book, but they were really upset about it.
Oh my god. Did they drown in the irony or was it
Well, the funny thing is, it didn't even occur to me till much, much later, where I'm like, it's like, yeah, if you read that and it's enlightening to how a powerful politician would be successful, right? This is how they gain power, and this is how they keep it. And this was written, was it Machiavelli was during in Prussia, maybe like 1700s, I believe, somewhere in there. And
Thought he was Italian.
maybe
I thought
1800s.
I thought I thought the prince was like a sales pitch, so he could
No, it was a
work for.
letter. It was a letter to the Prince of Prussia, I believe. Now, it's been 20 years since I've even given this book any attention. You can look it
Mhm.
up. All right, fact check me. I mean, Machiavelli is definitely an Italian sounding name, but from what I
Italian
understand,
diplomat.
I think the letter was to the Prince of Prussia, giving him advice. That's why the book is called The Prince.
Mm.
So, yeah, it was just really interesting because they got upset about it. I was like, yeah, they might be upset because they want their children to believe that people in government are, they're just doing they're public servants and they're doing it because they love the people.
Right.
But if you read The Prince, then that's the case. And it's funny, a lot of people are like, do you really believe that people are like that? I'm like, people have always been like that. Like if you read history and philosophy, if you read a lot of philosophy over the years, dude, the majority of these philosophers, especially in like political science, are just everything's about manipulation and control. There's like this is how it's been. Why would you think that just because it's 2023 that all of a sudden humanity is good? That doesn't make any fucking sense. So, all right, I'm rant over. What'd you find?
Well, there is it was for the Medicis,
I might be way
and in
off.
fact, he prefaces his work with a letter to Lorenzo de' Medici, the Duke of Urbino. He wanted to prove that he would be a good uh, Italian
Advisor.
diplomat. Like he should be
I think in
up there in
Prussia. Maybe he
charge.
ended up being sent to Prussia. I fucking forget.
I don't know. I just think you like the word Prussia, but it's okay.
I do. I really do. I think it's cool because
Anytime
it
we start
sounds like
talking about education, Mike's like, Prussia, baby. Get the people to. How do you get people to fight in a war they should never be fighting in? You got to send them to school.
school.
And that's exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the whole idea, the whole concept there is that the ends justify the means.
Right.
He's basically saying, I will be an absolute savage and take no prisoners and do whatever is necessary. So you can, the whole concept of the ends justify the means is if I do something really evil, it's okay as long as there's a net benefit at the end.
Yeah.
And that's how you get people to make what I would consider really horrible decisions and commit all kinds of atrocities. It's like the idea that those who commit atrocities for the benefit of the people are the worst because they are morally justified in what they're doing. They're not.
There's a quote out there. I forget. Maybe it's
Yeah.
Benjamin Franklin said. Do you know the quote?
Yeah, I'm paraphrasing that exact quote. It might even be George Orwell. Actually, I'm not sure.
I think it is George Orwell.
But yeah,
I mix
basically
up George
this.
Orwell and Benjamin Franklin all the time.
Well,
Basically
George
the same
Orwell was
guy.
the one who loved flying kites and lightning storms. I'm pretty sure. Also, can we talk about that for a second? This, it's kind of funny how history, which really is just his story, paints people so oddly. Like Benjamin Franklin, somehow when I was growing up, was just this bumbling idiot with a kite and a key on it.
Totally. What an idiot.
And he was actually one of the foremost physicists and scientists and philosophers and diplomats. in the world at the time. And so the picture that gets painted way after the fact is totally insane. Anyway, so
Back to
that's
George
actually a
Orwell.
good. That's a good. Well, that's a good argument for some form of Machiavellianism, right? It's better not to have bought in to a sick culture, and instead, it's better to think about what would yield you the best result.
Right. Well, I think that line of thinking is what's result is been the primary driver in the way things have been done up to this point. So I think there's some benefits and some obvious complaints available in the world around that.
Hmm.
Hmm. Well, I have another topic we can cover. Did,
Perfect.
are you consuming any media right now, or am I gonna have to tell you about it?
No, you're gonna have to tell me about it. I
All
have
right.
been listening to the Tao Te Ching.
Okay. Yeah. So you broke your fast.
I broke my fast, but I'm being very deliberate with what goes in right now.
Nice. All right. So in the psychedelic community, there's a video that's getting shared by everybody. Everyone's so excited about this video, and within like the first like 30 seconds of me seeing it, I was just disgusted. And everyone else is so excited about it. I'm like, I'm gonna do a write up about it and just shit on everyone's parade. But it's John Oliver. You know who John Oliver is? He's a
Mm-hmm.
British comedian. He's funny. Like he's good stuff from a comedy perspective. Um, but so he does this whole rant on basically psychedelics. I mean, it's a long rant. He goes on this whole thing about psychedelics and how it's ridiculous that it's illegal and making comparisons and yada 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 yada. Right. And so
Mm-hmm.
he's basically making it sound so ridiculous on why it would be illegal and how everyone should have access and the benefits and all the research and all this stuff. And he's doing it in a comical way where I'm sure it's getting a lot of head nods. And then everyone's like so excited about it, like, oh, check out John Oliver's on board. Da, da, da. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
immediately like, fuck that guy. What a like and the reason the reason is I can go on his YouTube channel a year ago, and this same guy who's making fun of like the scientific community and the government and just people with sticks up their asses about psychedelics. The same guy a year ago is telling you you're an idiot if you don't get a COVID vaccine and was
Mm-hmm.
really pushing for more of a authoritarian perspective on making people get the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
And the the irony in that is just blows me away. It's like and I want to shit everyone on everyone's parade because it's like this same guy, he is now jumping on the bandwagon when it's convenient and popular too, right? Like to come out and say psychedelics is a good idea in 2023 is not a controversial thing. You're not pushing the cause forward. You're late. And the while at the same time he is minimizing the sovereignty of individuals by trying to force people to get vaccines. And the uh, the reason it pisses me off is because I think the primary issue in the psychedelic community for 50 years was we have sovereignty over our own consciousness. We have sovereignty over our own bodies.
Mm-hmm.
We have the right to have access to these things. No one should deny us this right. And so uh so then people I think a lot of the psychedelic community has gotten in this place where they're like any way the ends justify the means in a way, like any way we can get this healing medicine in people's hands, it's going to make the world a better place. And I agree, we get more people do psychedelics to chill the fuck out. Not everyone should do them, but it would be very beneficial overall. But but what I'm witnessing in the space, because I am involved in the industry a bit, is what I'm witnessing is all these big companies coming in, big pharma coming in, these companies that are trying to synthesize and make their own and patent their own psychedelics and their own methods and all this stuff. And basically, by the time that the government's going to come around and say this is okay to do, big pharma will have taken over. The methods by which it can be administered will be heavily dictated, and the ability for the individual to be able to utilize these amazing tools to unlock their own realization of their own sovereignty is going to be heavily diminished, because so much of the attention is on just healing trauma, just trauma, just trauma. I'm like, yeah, healing of trauma is great. But if you're only going to allow certain types of people to serve this medicine, and as long as they're doing these, abiding by these certain guidelines that basically allows mommy and daddy to maintain control, then the medicine is it's been diminished. It's lost. It's I think what's actually possible. And so I see this John Oliver guy going off, and people are getting so excited. And I'm getting pissed because people are excited about it. And you can hear it now. I'm fucking fired up. I had to control myself yesterday because I was building out like marketing materials for a launch I have coming up, and then I'm like, I want to fucking make a post about this. Like, no, don't go stir up a bunch. Don't stick your foot in the anthill right now. Just focus on your work. But yeah, it just really pissed me off because a year ago, here's the thing: is I want to see John Oliver do a whole bit making fun of himself from a year ago, being completely wrong and being totally misguided because he fell for the same exact thing that he's making fun of right now, and I think it's shitty. Fuck that guy.
Well, if there's well,
Thanks for
if
letting me
there's one
go.
thing, if there's one thing that the talking heads are really known for, it's owning their mistakes.
Yeah.
And self-awareness, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
the word that came
I
up for me as soon as I saw it, I was like, "What a shill! What a fucking shill!"
yeah,
He was
he's
basically
Maki.
he was probably paid by some pharmaceutical companies. Like, oh, now I can talk about it like this.
Probably, or maybe not even paid, but threatened. I mean, if you have an audience like that, you sort of have to pander to the audience, and if someone in if five people in black suits and sunglasses say, "Hey, just wanted to make sure that you were informed properly about the current state of affairs in case I don't want you to have some sort of accident or make a mistake in the way that you're reporting this because it'd be very dangerous for everybody."
Yeah,
Right? So it sounds like you're mostly frustrated that he personally is a hypocrite rather than the content of the latest psychedelic thing.
yeah. Not just that he's a hypocrite. I don't give a shit about that as much as how much people fall for it. How much people will
Yeah.
they don't see the hypocrisy, and they don't. And if they don't see the hypocrisy, it means that they're not also focused on helping create a free world where every individual has the right to their sovereignty. And if you're
Most
not looking
people
through,
don't want a free world. Most people don't want a free world. They're trained not to want a free world. They're trained
yeah,
to have uh, sheepdogs of some sort guide them around. So you can't, you know, um, I guess it's just not surprising to me that that is the case. And I
yeah,
think what you're talking about with the pharmaceutical control of psychedelics is a bummer. And probably a lot of the stuff that you're talking about would happen with it. And that's always the case of, government regulation. There's this, um, I think it's called great moments and unintended consequences. And this channel, Reason, I think is what it's called, does it. And they talk about all these different things where they have really good intentions, but the consequences are absolutely horrific. It's kind of the idea of you introduce snakes to control the rats, but then you have too many snakes, and then you throw mongoose in there, and then you got too many mongoose. And you know my thing about the sequoia trees, where they were putting out fires for 30 years and decimated the sequoia population because no one considered the fact that they thrive when the forest catches on fire to eliminate all of the other competition for nutrients. So they spend all this money and all this time to save the sequoias and help them grow, but actually they did the exact opposite. And there are a lot of laws like that too. So it might be good intentions, not always. There's tons of nefarious purposes, but why can't you buy raw milk? You know, why can't you collect rainwater? There's a bunch of absolute monumentally stupid stuff
We
that
can in
happens
Texas.
in the nature of politicking, right? And those are people serving their own self-interest, and that's why it's always better to just have transactions be as free as possible, because then you don't get the governor or the mayor of a town giving a contract to his brother-in-law or his cousin or something like that without really taking other bit. Like, there's so much corruption possible when you get more fingers in the pie, and that's what you're talking about with the psychedelics. Fortunately, there will always be the option to do it on the black market, just like you know, even though marijuana in a lot of places is still a horrifically illegal somehow, people still do it.
Yeah. 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 I just think it's sad that a lot of people think they're having the experience when they're having a very controlled experience.
Mm.
And then
Everyone's having.
they're in the matrix, you know?
I mean, so are we to a certain extent.
Oh yeah,
I'm in
I
a
don't deny
vacuum
that.
right now. I'm in the weirdest vacuum I think I've ever been in my whole life. I took it to such an extreme. Uh, so I've been only listening to classical music and writing in a notebook and hanging with the dogs. I
What's your
did have
girlfriend think about this?
she thinks I'm no weirder than usual. um,
I pick up weird behavior and my partner starts getting worried about me.
yeah, no, I'm way off the reservation already. Uh, but I did have a good moment of nirvana the other day because my dogs are both very wise. They don't really try to do more than one thing at a time. And so I'm sitting there and I have a rotisserie chicken and I'm just eating a chicken and I'm feeding my dogs the same chicken. We're all eating the same chicken and none of us were trying to do anything else. And it was just this wonderful, perfect experience that we were having. We weren't thinking about the next chicken. We weren't thinking about should we be sleeping or playing instead of eating chicken. We were all just eating chicken, and everybody was really with that singular experience. And it was such a good reminder that the more you spread your attention across 100 different things, the more scattered your consciousness is going to feel.
Totally.
Yeah, but I'm a weirdo for sure. It's super odd.
All right. My last topic that I can bring up for the show today is I started.
You're still angry at John Oliver. Fucking John Oliver,
Dude, I would
motherfucker.
fight him right now. I would fight him right now.
Yes. Let the hate flow through you.
I want to get what's his name? I can see his face. Fight promoter, UFC, Dana White. And get Dana White. It's like, hey man, want to call out, put us in the octagon, let's go.
Hmm.
It's easy for me to say because he's a pudgy dude, but so maybe this might be part of it. Last Thursday was the first day that I started training heavy again. I started training I'll say
All
training
this aggression is
seriously.
coming out.
Dude, my testosterone's
Careful,
through the
people. If
roof.
you lift a heavy weight, you're going to want to fight some talking heads.
This is why I should be on the media fast still. I'm like, oh.
No, I like it. One of us has to be all fired up and angry. It's nice that it can be you for once. I'm tired of talking. I'm tired of yelling about how we should end the Fed and reduce lobbying and not fuck with the currency and all that stuff. You do it for a while.
All right, I'm on it. I got it.
You be the angry
By
man.
by the way, it looks like they're going to raise interest rates again
Oh,
to
goody.
because of inflation. We're going to print up
How
all this
about
money. Well,
I
we're
heard
afraid of
they
inflation. Oh, inflation won't happen. Fast forward 2 years later. Oh, we've got to like raise the interest rates. Debt just got super expensive. Sorry, you can't start any new businesses. Sorry, you have to fire everybody off. Why? Oh, inflation. Why is there inflation? We're not really sure. Like, full of shit.
I mean, I'm not sure exactly what was in the Inflation Reduction Act, but I
I think there's
think
1.7 trillion dollars in spending is what was in there.
yeah, I
A
think
lot of
we
pork.
spent a lot and we continued to print more, which sounds like the exact opposite of inflation reduction. But, what do I know? I'm just a common peasant
Dude,
living my
dude,
life.
here's the thing. You could go through every single bill passed by Congress in the last 100 years, and whatever the name of it is, it does the opposite.
Totally.
Like you just get in. All you gotta do is read it. Like you're not gonna read all of it because it's unreadable. But if you just learn what a dozen of the 100 things that got stuffed in there does and where the money's going, you'll realize real quick that that name is just there for you. It's for the audience to is a trick. It's almost
I
always
remember
the opposite. It's incredibly accurately opposite.
I remember hearing the phrase that politics is theater for the ugly. And I've found that to be very much the case. It's not really like these people have the interest of the people at heart. It's really just a big show. And now it's down to these sound bites where they're like, "Oh, Senator so and so drops bombs on this other guy. This person roasts. This person destroys this other guy." And really, they're just like squawking about the same old shit and hiding the fact that we're all just getting robbed blind.
um,
Uh,
yeah, I guess some of the details of Clinton's advisor committing suicide came out, like the details of the suicide scene. So
was this the one that shot himself in the back of the head twice?
he shot himself in the chest with a shotgun and hung himself. And they can't find the shotgun, and the shells were found in the car. Like the empty shells were in the car, and it was warrant. It was said it was a suicide.
Oh,
So
that makes sense. I mean, it doesn't. I'm surprised more stuff like that doesn't happen because
I think it
clearly it's
happens all the
not.
time. I think
But we
I
don't
think
hear
some of
about
it
it.
leaks. I think it's happening. I think if it leaks, it's like 1% is actually getting out.
Well, I mean, these people have if it's a person if it's a person of interest, there's going to be some sort of paper trail that ends very abruptly. So we'll know if they disappear or die. And my comment is that it doesn't seem very difficult if you have all this power to whack somebody at all.
Oh, not at
I
all.
mean, it, what do you think? 50-50 that Jeffrey Epstein A didn't kill himself or B is still alive somewhere. I mean, how could you know? How are people so sure? It's oh, sorry, the camera's broke. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that was part of it. It was it was the advisor to the Clintons in the 90s that authorized 17 visits from Epstein.
Mm,
Yeah.
there you go. And we'll never know the truth, most likely. What did they do when they said they were going to release the details from the JFK thing? Like, look how far back do you want to go? That's why the more history I've studied, the more I just imagine how monumentally skewed all of it is, because there's basically no incentive for straight record keeping, right?
No,
There's
I
almost no incentive.
I've
There's
had
way
people
more.
I've had people that are like talking about history. I'm like, maybe. They're like, no, that's what happened because of. I'm like, where do you find that out? Like, well, it's in the history books and all that. I'm like, was the news accurate last week? No. Okay. So 150 years ago is going to be more accurate than right now. I actually think it's probably the opposite. I think you're more likely to know what's true right now in this moment than what happened 150 years ago. How many people? I mean, what's the literacy rate in the U.S. right now? Probably like 99%. Like most people can read and write.
How literate are we talking?
Well, they can read and write. They can use the crayons, but the literacy rate maybe 100 years ago, I don't know what it was. Maybe 5%, no more than 10%. I don't think. Um, the
We won't
cost of
fact check you, but go on.
Go for it. The cost
No.
of ink. Well, just the cost of books. So access to books. You only had access to books if you were in like a university setting. There weren't like public libraries. The cost of a book was was much more than it is now. Like everything's gotten so cheap. Uh,
Mm.
so access to literature, access to paper, pen, ink. I mean, I go through a pen. I order these pens, this Sharpie gel pens. I order a dozen at a time, and I go through one a week. Once a week, it goes dry on me.
You go through a pen a week?
I go through a pen a week.
Where are these books that you're writing?
There's one right behind me. And
That is crazy. That's a crazy amount.
yeah, well, I had to check myself one day. I was like, why am I going through these pens so fast? I opened it up and looked, and I'm like, okay, I'm looking at the pen. It's full. And then I write for a week, and then it starts losing ink. And I open it up, and it's empty. I go, I guess it's not. I was thinking
Huh.
maybe the pen is like, faulty in some way, but every time I get them, it's almost exactly a week. Um,
Wild. That's super impressive. I don't write that much.
yeah, I probably, if I were to add it all up, I'm probably writing on average like an hour a day of handwriting
Wow,
total.
nice.
Um,
Cursive or print?
cursive,
Yeah, how
cursive.
cool. Feels like we're part of a cool club.
We're fucking so cool. I got everyone in
God,
my
I feel cool right now.
yeah, people in my programs, I have them write in cursive. Some people hate me for it, and then they thank me
Yeah.
for it eventually. Sometimes it's
It
the
feels
next day.
good.
Sometimes it takes weeks, but eventually they like it. What were
It's
we
so
talking
smooth,
about?
isn't it? We're
Yes,
talking
because you're drawing words.
we're talking about history. We're talking about how
Oh
history is
yeah, so
very inaccurate.
if you think about the amount of people that even got to write down their experience, because there was no television, there was no like video recordings. Like the only recording that happened is if you could write it down. And then if you look at the way that people were writing and sending telegrams, every letter in a telegram costs money, right? So I want to send a telegram, it's a penny per letter. Okay, I got to keep this short and to the point. There's not a lot of fluff
Hmm.
in here. I'm not going to describe the scene. I'm just going to give you the bullet points, right? Which might actually be
Hmm.
better for accurate historical references. But uh, my whole point is the the level of access that people had to be able to record and share information. Only the elite of the elite of the elite had that ability for
A long time.
thousands of years,
Almost ever, yeah.
until the last 100 years. And in the last 100 years, printing press, uh, literacy went up. And there's a lot of things that contributed to that for sure. But now the idea that like anybody could document and share, because I mean, 50 years ago, our parents, if they wanted to document and share, they would have to sit down, handwrite a letter. Maybe they had a typewriter and they would mail that motherfucker off. And then somebody would get it and digest it. And unless they were selected by a media company, a newspaper to publish, it's not going to reach that many eyes. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the view of history incredibly narrow. Anything beyond, we have
Well,
access
it's
to so
just
much information.
slanted. It's just slanted also.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is like if only 1% of the people control it, and these 1% all are sharing a perspective, then they basically get to decide what was true. So when people, yeah, my whole point is like, don't be so convinced that you actually know what it took for us to get here, because we have no idea.
Presuming to know is a disease. That's what the Tao Te Ching says.
Mm.
Uh, the master has healed himself of all knowing. It's it reminds me of Gell-Mann amnesia, which I've talked about on the show many times. It's one of my favorite things,
Dude,
actually.
I
I
don't
remember
remember you
hearing
saying that not one time. And maybe I'm experiencing
I'm
amnesia, but
Gell-Mann, Gellmann. I first heard it from Michael Crichton, and he talks about reading the newspaper as a
oh, you
subject
have talked
matter
about this, but you
expert.
didn't use that name
Yeah, Gell-Mann.
unless I'm.
Uh, Gell-Mann, maybe.
Dude, Michael Crichton
And
is awesome.
he's a savage. Did you ever listen to that long talk, States of Fear, that I sent you?
I did. It was so good.
Oh, he's a monster. I'm really bummed that guy died. Um, excellent books. His book Travels, one of my favorites. His lectures are his like little talks that he gave like that are insane. But anyway, Gell-Mann amnesia. Basically, you're a subject matter expert. You're reading the paper. You're scrolling through the news, and then you come across an article that you know is bullshit because it's within your field of expertise, and you're like, this is bullshit. This isn't true at all. Like,
Right.
I am an electrical engineer. This article about electrical engineering is completely wrong. There's no factuality to this whatsoever. But then as soon as you turn the page, you're like, oh, this seems correct. Like, I assume this page will be true though. and that's and that's what happens, right?
Well, I
we
talk
we
about
make all
this.
of these assumptions that it's accurate, but accuracy doesn't necessarily improve the bottom line. In fact, it's way more important for the news outlet to provoke your emotions than to provide factual accuracy. It's not
Yeah.
even close.
Yeah. I talk to people about that in regard to the government. They're like, oh, the government's got that handled or whatever. I'm like, do you really think so? Like, yeah. I was like, well, tell me about how you feel the government handles your industry. Like, what are you an expert in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now tell me about how the government has improved your field or your industry. And they're like, well, there's all these problems and yada yada yada. I'm like, as many problems there are in your industry is happening in every industry.
Right.
It's not selective to you, I promise, in what you know.
Hmm. It is funny, isn't it? But I think of it like this: most folks have this idea that Uncle Sam is really looking out for them. It's kind of a godlike figure. And in order for them to accept the reality, which is that it's just a bunch of horny, ignorant, pleasure seeking, pain avoiding monkeys, just do just doing whatever they can to control their environment so there's more pleasure and less pain. If you say that to them, you are killing their god, because there's this idea in their mind that there's this higher plan, there's this greater good. These people who are in charge, they do know what's best for everyone, and they're conditioned to think that the average person is really too stupid to have total sovereignty anyway, which is certainly a toxic thought in our culture that does pervade most of society. But as soon as you say, no, that's not actually the case, you're not only killing their God, you're killing a big part of their self. Their ego is attached to this idea that their unique perspective or their universe is has these components to it that they can trust, that are there, that are looking out for them. And if you take that away, what's left? So it's a soul crushing, illusion shattering, ego killing experience for them. So it's no surprise that people won't go back and correct their mistakes. It's no surprise that people would rather cross their fingers and hope that their overlords who continue to beat them senseless have their best interest at heart. It's why people get, it's what Stockholm syndrome is another one of those things where you associate with your captors. It's not surprising that people reject what would essentially kill their story, their sense of self, and their feeling that there is a higher power that is looking out for them.
How do we get people to stop ignoring what's right in front of them? Any ideas?
You got to turn off the TV.
Mm.
I think that might be all you have to do. It's really tough though. It's funny how not doing something is so challenging. You would think there would be nothing easier than to do nothing, but I'm like this close to writing a book called How to Do Nothing. I think people are primed for it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
I've had so many people fail to not look at media for even one day, because I suggest it. I think it's a cool idea. You think about how a person's emotions just get swept to and fro. People get all wound up about, oh, Ukraine and North Korea and my God, like I heard there was a weather balloon and a UFO or something like
Yeah,
that, or
yeah.
were being spied upon.
Well,
I
did
mean,
you
my
hear that
God,
the U.S. admitted to being responsible for the Nord Stream pipeline destruction?
no,
Yeah,
they did
yeah,
really.
yeah. Pretty
Wow,
much. I don't know if they
that's.
admitted it, but it came out. It was pretty conclusive. It was like, oh yeah, the U.S. just did that shit.
I
And when it
remember
first
when that
happened,
happened.
when it first happened, all my friends who might be called conspiracy theorists were like, the U.S. did it, and this is why, and da, da, da. They were able to like break it
Yeah.
down. Everyone's like, nah, you're fucking crazy. 3 months later, or however long it's been since that happened, everyone's like,
I mean, that
oh
was
my
my
god.
guess.
It's like, yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
I suspected it, but I mean, I would never claim that it's true. I'm just like, yeah, that's a possibility.
Yeah, sounds likely, right? A lot of
Well,
stuff is like that.
that was the
That
point
sounds
that a lot of people
likely.
go is like, yeah, well, who would benefit from this? You know?
I always think of the Venn diagram of where incentive and opportunity come together.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever there's incentive and opportunity, you can believe that's going to happen. There's so there are so many people. It's like when we talk about voter fraud, probably been happening forever. Probably easier when you mail them in. Probably
Yeah.
super easy. Like and it's one of those things where you don't want to get too invested in picking a side, because then you just play into the hands of the puppet master, right? They're like, hey, red t-shirt guys, aren't we cool? Fuck those blue t-shirt guys, right? They suck. And then meanwhile, the other guys are doing the exact same thing. But really, for the longest time, most likely it's just been whoever is the best at rigging the game. Whoever has been the most effective cheater is the winner. More likely, how could you have this blind faith that it's going exactly as planned? That seems crazier to
I think a
me.
lot of people I've heard this conversation, and so I've talked to people about it's like there's never not been voter fraud. Like, how is that even possible?
There's so much
It's
incentive.
not. It's not new.
Can you think of a bigger carrot than voter fraud?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's so much benefit to be gained from winning an election. It's
And this is
crazy.
one of those topics where there's a lot of people who believe that they go, look, even if there is voter fraud, we shouldn't talk about it. We really shouldn't give it any attention because people might lose faith in the system, and that would be worse.
Why should they have faith in the system in the first place?
Well, it's because they were told to from childhood over and over and over again through repetition.
Right.
Yeah.
Got to turn off that TV.
Oh, yeah.
But look how easy it is. There's that idea of I support the current thing. And God, I wonder how many people have listened to this podcast and just absolutely hate my guts now. I bet there are people out there who are like, man, that guy Max was really cool when he just taught us how to do like ankle circles and kettlebell swings and handstands. But that guy's a real a-hole.
I get nothing but compliments on your behalf. So
Oh, that's good.
people love it. People love your attitude. They love your personality.
Oh, come on. What are you trying to
Yeah,
butter me up for? I already like you, buddy.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. Now I'm trying to think of something to ask you for, but I can't think of anything.
Well, you
I'm like,
probably
he's
don't want
buttered
that.
up. Take advantage. Fuck.
You don't want that much. It's
Not much. Yeah,
Well, I mean, you do want to help wake people up so they're not a cog in the machine that is harming so many,
yeah. Well, that's an interesting
right?
conversation. So, like, I was talking to a buddy in the psychedelic community yesterday, and I was discussing the idea of putting on a psychedelic networking event here in Austin. So Ashley
Do
and I
it.
have been talking about doing that. I think it would be a lot of fun. And then we sat down. We go, okay, a great way to get people to a networking event is to bring in like one headliner speaker that just gets people excited to be there. I want to see that speaker. The speaker should be good, but really the networking is where the magic is. But most people don't invest in networking. They invest in being entertained. And then the networking happens, right? They don't join a gym because they want to be a part of the community. They join a gym because they want some type of result. I want to lose weight or whatever it is. And then they enjoy the community. And that might actually be what keeps them around. But it's hard to get people to say, hey, why don't you just come join my church? The community's awesome. Someone has to be in a
Mm.
pain and think that it's going to solve it. So, anyways, we were thinking, is there like a well-known name in the psychedelic space that we would feel really good about inviting to come on stage that would attract a big crowd, and they would speak truthfully and honestly and authentically and accurately about these things, and I couldn't think of a single one. I'm talking to my friend who's been in the space for a very long time and who knows everybody, and he's like, I can't think of anybody. It's like anyone who should be listened to in that industry is too busy in doing their work, and they're not interested in being on social media and being well known. And the people who are interested in
Mhm.
being well known should probably shut the fuck up and listen to the people who have logged 10,000 hours of serving people the medicine or whatever it is. So
Mm.
it's a
Get an AI hologram of Ram Dass.
dude. That's why you're here. We just
That's why I'm here.
yeah, yeah. That would
I
be
think that could work.
that actually that would work. I could dude, we could yeah, yeah, to
It's
say that it's a
totally
recording.
feasible.
Yeah, we could use AI to solve this problem, you know.
Well, you know, the greater the sample size is, the more accuracy you're going to get. So that's one of the things about Joe Rogan, for example, is you can make an AI Joe Rogan very easily because there's a tremendous data set
Right.
to pull from.
Right.
And this we come back to the amazing thing about computers is you can you can track every time he said a certain word or phrase. And you could even figure out which word or phrase he has said the most amount of times, right?
Yeah.
So it could be a preferential um, vocabulary, basically, based on the frequency of times that he has said X, Y, or Z or the other thing. That would be so interesting to do with me and you also, just to see what kind of nonsense that we're spouting.
It would be, yeah, we're going to be able to do
I'm
that
afraid
before we die. Before we die, we're going to have this
uh,
experience. We're going to say,
we could do it right now. We have a big enough data set. I'm just afraid that it would be like um uh well, interestingly enough, and it's just be me never saying
well, then
anything
you just
important
go in,
whatsoever.
you say, don't include these words,
Yeah, ignore it.
ignore those words, and stick with the actual content.
Right.
That would, I mean, I don't know the simple way to do that. I know that the technology exists where we can do that, but I think there,
Transcribe. If you transcribe it, you can find uh
yeah,
yeah.
there's a way to do it. There are limitations on how much text you can put in, say, Chat GPT, but if you want to pay money, you can get access and you can enter in, more volume of text
Oh
that
yeah.
would
Yeah.
make that possible.
Well, and I mean, Chat GPT, that's just like one brand of machine learning, right?
Well, check this out.
The the
So
program could be a lot simpler.
who's one of the most popular people in like the marketing industry right now? It's Alex Hormozy, right?
Mm.
Like you can go into Chat GPT and say, write me an email about this in the voice of Alex Hormozy.
Yeah, you could.
And then it's like, boom, headline. I'm like, man, that headline sounds like something Alex would say. Boom, 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 and lay it all out. So yeah, it's possible. What I want to do is I want to plug in at some point between you and me, and then we'll plug in saying, have Mike and Max discuss this topic, and then we actually hear ourselves, the audio and everything, where the podcast plays out. And we don't even have to do it; we just get to listen to it.
It'd be interesting to talk to yourself also, right? If it could
Ooh.
respond. So you just have it's basically your past
Oh,
self.
well, what would be great is if we could have, 2023 Mike right here. There's enough data from 2014 from all the shows I did. If I could podcast with myself and I could school me, that'd be cool.
I mean, it doesn't sound narcissistic to me at all. On today's episode of Monday Mornings with Mike and Mike.
Well, the problem is my past self is the one that would be getting all the benefit, but it's not real. So it would be pure entertainment. It wouldn't, although it might be a good reflection of like how far I've come. It's like, oh wow, or maybe a reflection of how far I haven't come. It's like, yeah.
Well, it's funny. I was actually writing a letter to my future self, and then I kind of got into the weeds about what that even means. And I was like, what am I doing this for? Is it for me? Is it for my benefit right now as the writer? Is it for your benefit later as future me? So I'm trying to get this separation there, because the only thing you would want to do is remind yourself of something or bring something to your attention in the future so that you make better choices.
Yeah, but you could be
Not
totally
trying to
wrong. It
be.
might be something later on. You're like, man, I really should have ignored that, but I keep fucking getting these letters I sent myself.
Yeah, exactly. That guy does not have my best interest at heart. What is wrong with that guy? Well, and you get stuck in nostalgia, which, do we talk about that last week too?
I don't think so.
Dude.
I'll let you know if
Okay,
you start going down that rabbit hole and I go, oh yeah, we already talked about this.
speaking of the past, do you know what nostalgia means?
No.
So check this out. I've been focused mostly on pain science the last like decade or so. And where else do you hear the sound algia? Neuralgia, fibromyalgia. Algia means pain.
Mm.
And nost means return home or homecoming. So the word nostalgia actually started in the 1500s. This Swiss guy noticed that the soldiers were becoming mentally and physically ill because they wanted to go home so bad. So he coined this word nostalgia. And for 400 years, nostalgia meant physical and mental or psychological pain from a desire to go home. So, like homesickness
Mm.
and return to the past. And then in the 1900s, it got sort of switched up in its common use, where now it's about you look back fondly on memories from the past, but actually it means pain from wanting to return home. And I think that even though people use the more common definition, which is this fond longing for the past, it's still a pain. It's like neuralgia, it's like brain pain that you are causing yourself by longing for something that is long gone. Isn't that
Yeah, you're
interesting?
longing for something that is impossible to have. I mean, I always I see that as like living in a fantasy. Like
Yeah.
like fantasies can be nightmares too, you know. But I remember I've definitely noticed that some people have a tendency to dwell on the past, whereas other people have a tendency to dwell on the future. Very few people dwell on the present, and it's interesting because I've had some friends that dwell on the past, and I have really I've gotten frustrated with them because I'm very future oriented. And I'm like,
No kidding.
why are you fucking wasting your time over here? And then I've also had to get present too, like and I've also it's been brought to my attention like you don't get that I don't give enough attention to like where I came from or honor that or whatever it is. And I don't know exactly what benefits I'd get from that, but uh I've definitely tried. But maybe compassion for myself and for my ancestors would be one, and having a better understanding of like what makes me tick now, which will impact the future. But it's about being better in the future.
I think remembering where you come from, origin, source, God, Mother Earth, is a good way to approach gratitude,
Hmm.
and it lets you think bigger about where you've come from, and it, like I said, it gives this big appreciation. We've talked about it before, but this idea that you can keep the lessons from the past, still be present, and then still be able to project forward into the future, that's essentially you're time traveling. It's a time traveling superpower. You're bringing your perspective through time at will. You have all of these really magic capabilities, but usually we get pigeonholed into one or the other. We're either always in the past or always in the future, or there are some people who are only ever in the present moment and they also find things really challenging. So they
Like,
don't really
yeah,
plan ahead very well. Like they don't save any acorns for the wintertime, and
yeah,
suddenly
those
it's,
those people just need to move to the equator. They'll do fine there.
man, I love that. It is such a generational, or not generational, it's a latitude based wisdom, I call it.
Hmm.
So you have the desert wisdom and then you have the frozen tundra wisdom, and the cultures really mirror the environments and the climates of those places. It's really
Absolutely.
cool.
Well, think
Yeah.
about I mean, oh yeah, this is so much fun. I had this realization. I was in Peru and I was in the jungle, but then I also went to the mountains, right? And everything in the jungle was like super flowy. Like, I'll just talk about the architecture as an example. You go to the jungle and it's almost like the huts kind of blend in with the trees and its environment. And the buildings, they look like part of the jungle in a way. And then you go to the mountains and then everything becomes very blocky, like a mesa style, if you're familiar with that type of
Mm-hmm.
design. And like desert, also a lot of times you get very blocky. Um,
Mm.
but also the medicine. So if you're thinking about San Pedro, the cactus that's in the mountains that's psychedelic, the you get a very you start to see how the your consciousness on that medicine sees things in the way that you go, oh, I know why people built the buildings this way. And if you drink ayahuasca in the
Mm.
jungle where it comes from, you get why things are done the way they are in the jungle. And they're this book I love, which is called Metaphors We Live By, is all about how every
Mm.
word in our mind has a physical representation in the world. So the idea that
Okay, juxtaposition.
hmm,
What's the physical representation of juxtaposition?
juxtaposition, uh, well, I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, I didn't read the
Okay.
whole. I'm sure there's like
I have the book, by the way. It's a good book. I was just I don't think it's for every word.
there is a well for like happy and sad, right? Happy is associated with up, sad is associated with down. Uh, when I hear juxtaposition, I actually see two arrows, and it's different from person to person, right? It's not absolute.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Right,
if
right.
I'm actually tuning into the picture that my mind is putting up, and it's funny because sometimes you're like, my mind's not creating pictures when words come up. I'm like, you're not noticing them, but they're in there. Like when I really check in, I go juxtaposition, two arrows pointing in opposite directions. Um,
Oh, interesting.
yeah. So I just start thinking about um, how your physical environment would impact how you think, because your environment is informing you of what reality is. And I forget why I even started talking about this. Can you help me out?
Well, we were talking about the different climates and the different
Mm.
wisdoms based on the climates and latitudes, different architecture based on the medicines, and then different thoughts based on the environment around you, which makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, I had a point. There was a reason I was going down that road, but it's one of those points where I feel like I'm not going to come back to it. So
Mm.
sometimes it
It's
feels like it's
still
on the tip of your tongue and you could get there. I'm not having that experience right now.
it's long gone. I think I kind of ruined it. I think I torpedoed you with the word juxtaposition,
It's all your
which
fault.
is ironic, but when you blame, there is no end to the blaming. I think I really would like to just become like a fucking Dao De Jing jukebox or something like that and
Oh
just hit
shit.
like
Dude, that would be great.
D8 or
That's
something
a good
like
use of
that.
AI. All right. What if like we could use AI to listen to all your conversations, and then it would just like bing and then give you the exact quote you need to come back to center. Like, oh, I'm being ridiculous.
No, it makes perfect sense. I've often thought about doing that. Like, why should I bother trying to have an original thought? There are all these excellent quotes, and I mean, think how pompous and arrogant I could sound and puffed up if I just always answered and responded to everything with a quotation.
I've been called an original thinker before, and I think that's hilarious. I don't.
Pride go before a fall.
I I think it's hilarious. Well, I don't think anything I say is ever original.
Me neither.
I mean, it's definitely a collection of a lot of other shit.
Absorb what is useful, discard what is useless,
Yeah.
add what is essentially your own.
I'm just
Yeah,
gonna talk
you really
shit,
could.
and you just keep responding with that. That'll be great.
I think I could probably get through a whole podcast just doing quotations. In fact, next week I think I might try to do that because it's not like I've really come up with any excellent ideas
We'll do
on the
no
show.
we'll
It's
do
like
no pre-show, zero pre-show. We'll just hit record, and you're gonna be Dao Jing the whole time.
I'm gonna just try quotes from any book that I'm familiar with, any person that I'm familiar with.
Okay. Okay.
I have listened to the Tao Te Ching like 8 times since breaking my media fast. And it strikes me every time how concise and clear and powerful the ideas are, and how even though I've listened to this and read it so many times, I still haven't captured all of the
Oh
wisdom
yeah.
from it. And it just makes me not want to read other books except for the pure entertainment value.
Well, what's funny is the media fast you're experiencing is what the majority of the humanity has experienced, until like the last 100 years, like we were talking about. And
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people, the only book they had was Tao Te Ching or the Bible or whatever spiritual
Mm-hmm.
text there was. That was like, if they did have something, they were gonna definitely have that.
Mm.
So I'm just imagining a farmer who the only text he has is Tao Te Ching and just reads that only and lives life. What's that like?
Yeah, he farms when it's time to farm. He eats when it's time to eat. He sleeps when it's time to sleep. I'm not surprised that people feel so ill when they're taking in a tremendous amount of psychic poison on a daily basis, designed specifically to knock them off balance. And all things need to be in balance if you're going to feel healthy and sane. I mean, there was a storm here the other day, and I grabbed my hatchet and I collected firewood from the park across the street because a bunch of like a tree fell down, or at least really a couple of gargantuan branches, like 40-foot long branches
Mm.
with 15-foot long branches off of that. And I just went out to the park with my hatchet and I collected firewood, and it was it was amazing. It was so fun. There was nothing special to it, but it was a very primal type of feeling. And living in Southern California, it's not like we A, need firewood, and B, it's not like there are forests around where I can go chop a tree down. I live kind of by the beach. But it reminded me of how many ancestors I must have had who, especially, I mean, look at me, I'm a white guy, so probably more of the Arctic type of wisdom than the desert wisdom. If you want to survive in that climate, you're going to have to burn some firewood. So I just wonder how many generations of guys were going out there and chopping wood and bringing it back to heat up their little houses. It's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, nothing profound over here. If you're eating, just eat. If you're chopping wood, just chop the wood. That would probably solve a lot of the problems in your mind. Or as they say in the Tao Te Ching, stop thinking and end your problems.
Love it. Love it. All right, y'all. I think we're gonna wrap this up.
Wrap it.
Great show. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I got to fire off on John Oliver, and I don't even know where we started. Oh yeah, the power of technology.
Computers.
Yeah, I
Computers.
mean, yeah, the idea of like power of technology. I really, it's something I've really been sitting with. You've heard Max and I talk about doing media fast recently, and how much benefit that we both received from that. And one of the things that uh, I have my students do is I have them do the media fast because we really want to get people moving from a place of being less of a consumer and more of a creator. And then if you want to, a lot of times people are frustrated and they're wondering, how can I make more money? Right. And they're sitting there and they're like, I want to make more money. I don't know how to make more money. And I want to remind you that making more money is money comes from other people's bank accounts, for one. And in order to get that money, you have to provide that other person with some type of value, which usually involves creating something. It might be combining two things to create something new, it may be creating content. It may be creating something. You have to create something if you're going to produce value and people are going to give you money. And so I'm a big proponent of really looking at technology and saying, going, is this being used against you, or are you using it for to serve you? You know, who is this
Mm.
serving right now? Which apps on your phone are distracting you, and which ones are helping you, are really valuable tools that are propelling you forward towards your goals. And so, um, keep that in mind. How much are you consuming versus how much you're creating? I like to tell uh, my students, time yourself on how much time you spend creating and using that technology to your benefit. And that's the only amount of time you have that are allowed to consume content. So check that out. I have a new program launching March 12th. It's specifically for transformational coaches, giving you all the foundation that you need, at least the start of your foundation for building your business. Leveraging technology is one part of the course. So if you want to learn more about that, you can just head over to thestrongcoach.com. It's gonna be a fun class. I've delivered I've done some 90-day programs for coaches in the past. This is going to be mostly new stuff, new strategies, more daily tasks, much more digestible and easy to understand, which is how any teacher should be evolving. So that's what we're working on over there. All right, Max, what you got?
I had fun today too. You can find me at maxshank.com if you like. It's a lot of fun stuff over there. Love you guys. Love you, Mike.
Love
Have
you.
a great week.
There you go. Why the fuck is this not stopping? I have to remember to cut that out. Experiencing connection issues.
I think we should leave this part in.
Yeah, don't log off.
I won't. Hey, look at that. It worked.